Hey, how's it going, guys? Ancient Rune here, back with another Borderlands 3 build video, and today I'll be going over my ultimate Amara build that's based around no Season Pass 2 or no DLC at all. Many builds focus on one powerful thing, but this build throws all those powerful things together to have the main goal of dealing the most damage and clearing content fast. This build is set up very similarly to the full DLC version, where we still go Pestilence spam. The difference we have is where your action skill is a little less powerful and you need to element match more for your fish slap and action skill. We still use fish slap, unleash the dragon, remnant for bossing, which is as effective as other. Of course, without purple tree, we can't have phase for bossing. We also have the option for stinger plus fish slap spam with new option of eternal fist. You can also use guns since we have ties that bind and indiscriminate in the skill tree, but I do not suggest it since there's so much stuff that is missing to support these more powerful options. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The save file will be found in my Discord, which is linked down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so first we're going to show off the Pestilence, then we're going to do two melee things, action skill only, and then guns. So, of course, with the Pestilence is the Pestilence spam. This is based around the Reload Nova. It gets 10 times the base damage, 31 times Mayhem scaling because it counts as an action skill, so it gets action skill scaling. It also gets V1, V2, debuff, elemental, splash, all that basic stuff with formula. It does not crit, so it can't get crit damage, and it also does not get weapon type damage, so it would not benefit from like pistol damage or personal space. We go the 150 over 90 anoint, as this is used for mobbing. We don't really have to worry about immune phases, and this will be a pure mult on this build. Of course, if they go below 90% health, they won't get that damage, but this is usually one-shotting anyway, so this is just a little bit of overkill, but still really nice. And then we have the Zepsis Eruption. This is just used for some nice debuff up to 200%. This can be used when trying to buff up some action skill stuff while doing Pestilence spam. So I have the action skill anointment on here, just whatever action skill you want to use. I normally use Phase Cast. Then we have a Psycho Stabber. This is for when we throw the fish slap for bossing. And we have it with Terror Cryo, just a nice bonus element there. And then we have the Sellout. This is used just to help dotting. And I also usually hold this gun for the most part when doing action skill stuff. You can still use the Zepsis Eruption and hold that. It's literally just any gun, but this is just nice to make sure I have a dot to help Elemental Projector. We already still have Driver and the Pestilence dot going, which still helps, but having this guaranteed dot is nice. We have it at low level with no mayhem level. This is possible if you complete the quest and then go right to Earl's Vendor at as low level as you can as possible and get an anointment one, and then just later on you can re-roll the anointment to whatever you want. And then for the shield, we're using a red suit, ideally with roid parts, to get some melee damage to help with the fish slap. We use the red suit here for being immune to the Pestilence. This means you want no bonus elements. Radiation bonus elements will work, like AOC Rad, but you don't want anything else. You can still take bonus elements like Infusion because it does not apply to the reload effect, so that is fine. But if you were to have like Terror Cryo, then that would down you. So that's keeping us protected with a big melee damage bonus. And then we have the fish slap. This is used for bossing. In my full DLC version, we didn't really need the element match, but I found element matching a lot more important after losing the purple tree. So I make sure that element match. This does mean we are not immune to our fish slap damage anymore, so I mainly just use this when I go against a boss or a tough enemy where I don't really throw it during mobbing, and I really don't need to throw it anyway. You still can, but you want to be wary of it hitting you. Ideally, you want it with link or greater parts. That will be max damage. Triple link is max damage, as the 50% damage bonus will apply to only one enemy as well, which is just a lot better than roided, which will only boost the base damage of your fish slap. And then we have AOC apply melee on the red suit, and then melee apply terror on the fish slap. This is for V1 damage where we aren't getting it anywhere else, so this is a huge boost applying to all of our damage. If we did use Victory Rush, then we would have another source of it, though not always active. It still is another bonus. And then we have the Spiritual Driver. This will give up to 500% around that gun damage based off of how fast you are moving. And so since we are always moving fast with this with a bunch of move speed, we are getting a lot of gun damage to boost the Pestilence Nova, which just means 500% gun damage at all time, and you don't need to aim, you just need to be near an enemy. And then this will also apply a dot based off of our action skill, which will then proc for Elemental Projector, meaning our action skills will usually have a dot applied to always have that Elemental Projector bonus on. But if we don't, then you can use something like the Sellout, or you can use a low-level Insider from DLC 2 or a Wester gun, which will help apply those dots. And with this, you just want to make sure you have as many points into mindfulness, as well as splash damage and splash radius and action skill cooldown. Action skill cooldown is more important on this build than the full DLC one because we don't have expedite, so that is a lot nicer. Since we already can get splash damage here and on arm steel, it's less needed on the class mod. It still is going to be huge to get, but that just means you could focus on mindfulness, splash radius, and action skill cooldown rate. We also just kind of deal enough damage with the Pestilence to where we don't need the extra damage. You could also get action skill damage on the driver if you wanted, but I don't here because we already get enough action skill damage, though more isn't bad. It also just, I mean, both splash damage and action skill damage will boost your action skills as well, which is really nice. Then we have the Elemental Projector static charge. Mainly we're focusing on the Elemental Projector with area of effect damage in the second and third slot and the action skill cooldown rate. The melee damage and the static charge are focusing for the fish slap, but not exactly needed. It just is more helpful. We could also go something with Elemental Projector Victory Rush to get some nice V1 damage. Those static charge is usually better because you don't need the slide to get that bonus, so you always have it. So you can, whenever you throw it at an enemy, it still applies to that enemy. And then if there's another enemy nearby, the static charge chains will go, and those chains will also double dip your damage, which is really nice. All right, and then this is going to be for the bossing. This is not the Stinger Fish Slot Slam setup, which is the bossing with Unleash a Dragon. We also do have Remnant for Remnant for bossing, but this isn't what this is focused on here. So first off, you're going to want to have a Psycho Stabber, either with AC melee or 150 over 90. 150 over 90 is better for if they're above 90% health. Otherwise, you're going to want to go that AC melee, and you'll want to have the Psycho Stabber because it gives a 120% increased melee damage plus a 100% increased melee molt, making this huge stat stick. And then we also have the Face Hunter. This is just to shoot at the enemy, so we can apply terror via our shield anointment, so we can benefit from terror damage and fire rate. And then we have a Sellout. This is just to break our Brawler Horde as low level as possible, same with before. And then with the Brawler Horde, we want this with the Triple Roid, which it only shows 2 parts, but actually has 3, which will be 300% melee damage, which will then go into Unleash the Dragon. With just the melee applied terror, the shield element does not matter at all. And then we have a Fish Slap with either Triple Link or Triple Roid. This will be what's applying the huge Unleash the Dragon dot, as it's the hardest hitting melee item, and just one of the hardest hitting items in the game, getting the melee scaling instead of grenade scaling. Absolutely insane. And you'll just kind of element match to whatever the health bar is. And then we have a Berserker, really just for the animal points I'm using it here. There is other stuff you could use. I don't have it on here. You could use a muse or a breaker as well, but I really like it for the longer dots. So even if you're missing some stuff, you can still have longer dots for more damage. But you can also just throw another grenade and that's no problem at all. But you want to focus on getting melee damage and splash damage for the most. And then the anima points. Splash radius is nice just to make sure you hit the enemy, but you're usually just kind of throwing it right at the boss anyway, so if you miss, that's kind of on you. And then the Unleash the Dragon. This is a really easy farm as there's only 3 passives, so you're going to want to make sure you get that incendiary damage and melee damage. This dot double dips your damage bonuses like V1, V2, debuff and all that, so you could throw on Zeph's Eruption on this build if you wanted to as well, but definitely not needed. Plenty strong, making this just insane. So basically you would just shoot the enemy, stack terror, apply a dot to yourself to break your shield. I know it's not broken right now, and then you would throw the grenade. You could also activate your action skill to apply a debuff via Laid Bare before that, and it will just melt enemies. Now without upgrading the Angel, it won't get as big boosted because you can't swap to it for free 500% V2, but that doesn't matter. This is still strong enough. It's just a tiny bit slower, which doesn't matter because it's still effective. All right, and then for the Fish Slap Stinger Spam, first thing I'm going to mention is you're going to want to equip Eternal Fist. Eternal Fist will grasp enemies. Once they're killed, they'll go to the next nearest enemy and grasp them again, which activates action skill start, action skill end, and all that. So it'll proc the Stinger constantly, and it does it up to 4 targets, which is amazing. So you have that constantly spamming, and you don't really have to put too much effort into it. You just got to make sure you're killing that grasped enemy. So again, we have these Psycho Stabbers. 150 over 90 is ideal. Then you can get AOC melee. You could also get an AOC Splash Wyvern, which I use on my Ultimate Flak build with no DLC. So whenever that video is out, before or after this, you can look at that and see what I mean. But these Psycho Stabbers will do just fine. I have a Face Puncher here, so I can go melee, apply terror, and then melee terror there. You could just go something like AOC Rad if you wanted to, but it's just kind of really nice there. A big multiplier there. And then I just have a terminal crit. You could also use a Health Shock or just any good item for Fight for Your Life, as we do have in this remnant. If you have multiple targets, this will be really helpful. You could also try using the Face Puncher for damage. It's not the best, but it does work. And then for the shield, using the Stinger, as this gets the melee scaling, it's also splash. It's just insane. You basically just element match if you want to. Cryo's a good general element here, but I just would use whatever you need to. I wouldn't use 2 of the same elements with Fish Slap and Stinger in case there's an immune enemy. We do have Illuminated Fist, which gives us a bonus element melee based off our action skill, which is nice, but still I wouldn't match here. And then the Fish Slap, again, super powerful. Link your roided parts, element match when you need to. Since this is more melee focused, you don't always have to, but I still definitely would. And then we're using the Phase Zerker again, just because it's got good action skill cooldown. You could use a breaker or a muse if you wanted to. I just really like the cooldown, and then sometimes the gun damage is nice if I need to occasionally shoot the Face Puncher for damage. The top rolls don't really matter as much. Anima doesn't matter here. Just the bottom roll. Splash radius is more important here, as it'll increase the radius of the Stinger. And then with the artifact, you want a static charge. I like to have Snowdrift on here, but definitely don't need. You could go an Elemental Stone. You could go Elemental Projector and use a sellout to apply a dot to you if you wanted. I don't here, but it's definitely an option. You could also go Knife Drain if you really wanted to, but we already have Sustainment, so it doesn't help that much. But then we have the action skill cooldown rate and a area of effect damage, as well as melee damage. you have a lot of melee damage already, so you don't need it. I mean, all these passes are really good. I'd mainly focus on area of effect damage in the second or third slot for that splash and radius, since Grasp does have a decent cooldown rate already of only 20 seconds, plus whatever else we're doing. You should be fine without it. Alright, and then this is for the action skill focus spam. This is based off of Stone Swan's on Supernatural Amara, which is crazy with the golden rule. Getting info from him about his full DLC one and just the old one that doesn't use the purple tree. This is from DLC 1, so if you want to use this action skill spam, you're gonna want to have that DLC 1 for the best cooldown rate and spamability as possible. So first off, we have the sellout to apply a dot to us. Since we're not using driver, we need a gun that can deal dot. We don't have anything for shock, but that's fine, because if we go to shock element like this, we still have infusion that can apply a shock dot when we shoot ourselves. And then we just have a second element, which makes stacking mindfulness really nice. The movement speed doesn't do anything for us except just move fast, which also is indirect survivability. You can also use a Zepsis Eruption for additional debuff, both of these having the action skill damage anointment. It doesn't matter what has the anointment as long as you're using it when you activate your action skill and hit an enemy. It's just easier not having to swap to anything else, especially when nothing else really helps too much. And then I have a crit just for some helpful fight for your life damage, which can suck hits. And then also I keep the Pestilence on here if you want to use it for a fight for your life damage, although you would go down if you activate it again once you get out, so you need to be careful by just swapping to and swapping back, even if you don't know you're gonna get back up. And then there's a couple options for the shield. I like going the all-in shield for some extra action skill cooldown, although you definitely don't need it, as Golden Roll gives plenty of cooldown. You could go like Frozen Heart with action skill start, you could go Stinger, you could go a stopgap, you could go a red suit and not have to worry about the Pestilence downing you. It does not matter at all. But if I'm using something that doesn't need action skill start, I have a second AC element, as these action skill end elements will stack Golden Rule as well. If you want to know more about the Golden Rule, I'll link the Supernatural Amara build that this is based on, which will explain it more. So I have AC Radiation, and then my grenade AC Shock, or just whatever element I want to go. It doesn't really matter too much. I'd really just make sure you have AC Radiation somewhere. So if you're using action skill start on your shield, have radiation on here. The red explosions might not be the best, but then they still exist somewhere. And also red explosions are just cool looking. For the grenade, I would use either the Quasar or the It's Piss. Really good utility grenades. Quasar is just good at throwing enemies around. You want to make sure it doesn't have the sticky part, but it does have the longbow part. You want to get this as low level as possible so it can't hurt you. Same with It's Piss. It's Piss just gives a really good debuff. You want to make sure it doesn't hit you though, because then it will remove your status effects. Then we have the Golden Rule giving us all that cooldown based off of how many hits we have, and these bonus elements will apply as hits, as well as self damage will stack this cooldown, and dots will as well stack the cooldown, which is insane. I would focus on getting splash damage, splash radius, and the debuff laid bare. And then mindfulness is nice, but we already have 3 points in it, which is fine, and it's just nice. And then either action skill damage or action skill cooldown. Since I already have so much cooldown from Golden Rule and elsewhere, I don't need it as much, where having that additional action skill cooldown is really nice. But we already do have action skill damage from Do Harm, so it's not as needed, but again, still really good. And then we have the Elemental Projector. I'd focus on Elemental Projector of all things. Victory Rush is nice, but not needed. We already have, or never mind. We start the artifact. And then we have the Elemental Projector. Victory Rush is really nice with this. Not needed too much, but still very helpful because we don't have the 1 damage anywhere else. So you could get that. I'd probably focus Elemental Projector, Victory Rush with area of effect damage. You can still go Elemental, action skill cooldown rate still nice. I just use this sometimes with the normal Pestilence spam, so it has melee damage on here, but that's how little that third slot right here matters. Alright, and then for gun stuff, I already threw away like all my gun stuff because I found it not working well at all. It worked, but it's just worse than going gun focused. And the main reason for this is we're giving up reload speed, we're losing fire rate and charge time, we're losing wrath because we just want so much other stuff like going down deep green, not going full infusion because we want other stuff. We still do have indiscriminate, and we would equip ties that bind and then whatever action skill elements you want. It's just not the best, but this is what you can do. Any good shield that would work. You basically just follow whatever Hellzerker Amara by Lazy Data follows. I will link the Amara build doc, which has Hellzerker in it, and if I can find the Hellzerker video that has maybe like no DLC version, I'll link that as well. But I like to use an old god on here. I have Hellshock and Crit just because they're two weapons I like and are really nice, both with consecutive hits for gun damage since Amara lacks that most of the time. But Old God's nice because we get a corrosive damage boost. I just have it with recharge, try and help keep topped off, with AC radiation for red explosions. I use an It's Pissed for debuff, which will be huge here, with another AC element. And then you want a Zerker for that increased gun damage and action skill cooldown rate, as well as getting those rush stacks up. Another big thing is with getting those rush stacks up, you usually only want 1 point in do harm, as too much action skill damage will mean that you will kill enemies around you but not the main target, and then you just lose that damage. DLC 6 bringing Revolter helps that a lot, which is why that then changed, why a lot of builds still go 5 and do harm. And we don't want to change this because that just hurts our main spec, which is what matters. Because we use action skill damage so much. We wouldn't want to change it for something that's just mediocre anyways. And you just want something like weapon damage, weapon type, action skill cooldown rate, splash radius I really like for hollow points whenever I get those, as well as red explosions. And then I got rid of my artifact, but you'd want to use something like the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge, or a good like Victory Rush that has good passives like splash, mag size, weapon type, cooldown rate, elemental, anything that would help your damage. And then for the skill tree, we'll start with Anima. We got 5 points here to make our status effects last longer, as well as increasing status effect damage for Unleashed Dragon. This is really good for keeping Elemental Projector up longer, especially when we've got a long cooldown skill like Tandava. So having this action skill last longer is really important. Then we have Steady Hands, just really nice for accuracy and handling if we ever have to shoot at an enemy. 1 point in infusion, just so whatever our element of our action skill is will apply to our guns, mainly for the self dot, for like what I use with the sellout. That just helps really nice, especially if I'm going something like shock. And then we go Tempest for increased elemental damage and even more shock damage. Then we go Illuminated Fist to give our melee damage a bonus element and increased melee damage. And then we have Dread just for if we use Phase Grass and our guns will be reloaded and gain gun damage. Deep Well, just elemental weapons have more mag size. Indiscriminate to help with mobbing. This is double dipping. Gets mayhem scaling, I think times 5.5. Really good here, especially for gun builds, and can help in fight for your life sometimes. Then we have Sustainment. Insane lifesteal, only need 1 point in it. We do not go to Forceful Expressions, as this would be really good with guns here for regular shooting, but this would then apply to our Pestilence, which would then down us, and we definitely don't want that. And then in Blue Tree we go Max Do Harm for the stats effect damage, 3 in Steady Hands to get reload speed, weapon swap speed, and bow swap speed, mainly for the swap speed, as we really want to avoid reload speed, as that means it's faster to reload the Pestilence, and we don't want to reload it, we want to stop it from reloading to keep that Nova spamming. 1-pointed Violent Tapestry gets increased stats effect chance, which is nice, but mainly for more rush stacks. And then we have Restless. This is for action skill cooldown rate, only 25%, but Amara doesn't have too much cooldown rate, so this helps a lot. Then we have Transcend. We aren't using too much stuff that can crit unless we're doing gun stuff, but the accuracy is still really nice if we have to shoot something. Otherwise, I'd probably put it in front of Tapestry to help with dot chance. Then we have Ascend. This is just 1-pointer, and it helps with our action skill augment, which on here we are using Soul Sap. So that's just nice and 1 point. Then we go Three-Legged Bear for an insane debuff, 25%. Then we go Remnant. Remnant is going to be huge, and one of the big things we go for bossing. So when we're bossing with the regular Pestilence spam or just action skill damage in general, you can hit an enemy and kill it, which will be nearby the big boss, and hope that that element or that remnant will go over and hit the boss, dealing billions of damage on a non-focused action skill build. This can one-shot True Hag, which is sometimes over 24 billion health per phase, and I would just element match to whatever the top health bar is of the boss. And then we have Awakening. This is to help our rush stack effectiveness, just so it will give us even more damage. And then we have Avatar, so we can activate our action skill twice, as well as gaining more rush stacks. And then for Green Tree here, I like to go personal space if I use gun stuff or just in fight for your life. Then we go 2 points in Clarity. Then we have 3 points in Samsara for some gun damage and also health regen. 5 points into Arm Steel to get some splash damage, really nice for our action skill and Pestilence. Then we have Mindfulness for movement speed. This is mainly because of Driver. And then we have Find Your Center for melee damage. And this also makes using the Pestilence and punching a lot better than just normal punching. Then we have Vigor for some more movement speed, which helps Driver even more. Then we have Drab Cross. This just helps get some action skill damage and gun damage, which can be really nice. And it's also mainly just dump points. And then we have Guardian Angel. Just if we go down accidentally, then we get right back up. And there's not really anything else we would spend points on, so it's nice to just reach this anyways. And then for the action skill, you can go Phase Slam or you could go Phase Cast. Phase Cast is a lot smoother, and I like using this because it's easier to hit a debuff on enemies, as well as just activate your action skill for Find Your Center, where if you were to go Phase Grass, you would have to actually hit an enemy, which can be annoying. And for the augment, I just use Soul Sap. It's lifesteal, but it's also just the only thing that won't decrease your damage or increase your cooldown. And then when you are going the Pestilence spam or the Unleash Dragon, you want to make sure that you have Shield Reboot and Emergency Response on, so you don't recharge your shield, so those roid bonuses don't go down. I hope you guys enjoyed the build video. This build does take some knowledge to play correctly, and I try and explain the best I can, but I will link tons of videos and resources in the description to help you out, and please ask any questions you have in the comments or in my Discord. Losing the Guardian Angel makes stuff less powerful, but does not make them less viable. Just may need some more work into them. But there are still plenty of things to use to deal an insane amount of damage on Amara. Again, you can find the save file in my Discord, which is linked down below, as well as my other socials. If you haven't, I would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.